I trained an AI model on the 9 dimensions that we look for in our interviews, trained the AI model in Jobs to Be Done, fed it our book and the customer-led growth process, basically trained this thing on our entire process, the context in which the interview was run, the context in which the goals of the company that we were working with and what we were trying to learn from those conversations, tons of context, fed in, again, these human-generated transcripts, and compared that to the parsing and analysis of a human researcher. And I was kind of bummed because it took me a long time. That was not a small project. That was weeks of work.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Forget the Funnel podcast. We're Gia and Claire, founders of Forget the Funnel, a product marketing and growth consultancy that helps SaaS businesses learn from their best customers, map and measure their experiences, and unlock their best levers for growth. If you're looking to help your team make smarter decisions, this show is for you.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Forget the Funnel podcast. Today I'm going to be running this episode solo, and I'm going to be tackling a question that we keep getting, which is, can I leverage AI to support my customer research efforts? So at this point, it probably makes sense to make the disclaimer that I am not a customer researcher. I am not a researcher. I don't have a research background. I've done a lot of this work, a lot of research work a little bit. I've got a very sort of wide breadth of understanding about conducting research. What I am, however, uniquely qualified to speak about is how to leverage customer research for growth and leverage it for, your team to make better decisions, leverage it for how to create better customer experiences, how to create revenue generating outcomes from that research. That I can absolutely speak to. So I just want to sort of set that context there. Okay, so to start off with, what role do I see AI playing in customer research today? This is a really tough one, and it's one that I actually get asked a lot. But ironically, I'm not being asked by founders or heads of product or the folks who are reaching out to us for help. I'm actually getting this question from marketers, obviously podcast hosts, people who are, sort of thinking about the next hot thing. But at the end of the day, the folks who are actually looking to leverage customer research, they don't really care all that much about AI. Those who are doing customer research and bogged down with the process potentially, or looking for shortcuts, they're the ones who are thinking about AI for the most part. And I'm not saying that AI doesn't have a role to play. It absolutely does, but it is just a tool. It's just a means to an end. It is not a replacement for customer research. Obviously, it's a topic that is changing very quickly. I was just saying before we hit record that this is probably not going to age very well. I have very strong opinions about many, many things, loosely held, particularly about AI, because I'm acutely aware that things are changing very, very quickly. But I still don't see a near-term future where AI is able to have a conversation with your customer and understand what motivates them and fundamentally why they make decisions and what value you provide to them and what really matters to them. There's no world where AI could do that. But I want to kind of preface this with this conversation that I actually had with Bob Mesta about a year or so ago. If anybody is going to solve the qualitative research with AI thing, it's Bob. And even Bob is no, we're not there yet. And I would say that the thing that he went back to, and that I inherently know, because again, I leverage customer research every single day, is that AI will never be able to read emotion or energy or sort of feelings or the true meaning of what a word means. Because if AI is using a transcript, transcripts lose all kinds of meaning. You don't get the intonations and changes in people's voice when they go low, when they go high, when they're when they say things sarcastically. AI is incapable of doing that today. And that's not to say that NLPs and LLMs haven't come a long way. They absolutely have, but transcripts are highly imperfect because they are not able to actually pull the true meaning out of a transcript. I'm not anti-AI at all. I use AI all the time. In fact, last fall, we ran a little bit of an experiment at Forget the Funnel. And over the holidays, because I had a little bit of time, because of everything that was happening with ChatGPT at the time and the custom GPTs that we were able to build, I was like, I'm going to give this a shot. We use human generated transcripts for every single customer interview that we run. We would never shortchange the teams that we work with by going with anything else. I trained an AI model on the 9 dimensions that we look for in our interviews, trained the AI model in jobs to be done, fed it our book and the customer-led growth process, basically trained this thing on our entire process, the context in which the interview was run, the context in which the goals of the company that we were working with and what we were trying to learn from those conversations, tons of context, fed in, again, these human-generated transcripts, and compared that to the parsing and analysis of a human researcher. And like, I was kind of bummed because it took me a long time. That was not a small project. That was weeks of work. And if I'm honest, if I had brought those insights to the team that we were working with, knowing what I knew about what was possible by a human, we would just have been completely shortchanging that team of so many ideas and so much context and so much valuable VOC and actual like understanding of what was going on in that customer's life, that I would have felt I would have felt like I was like a thief. like why would I ever take that understanding away when the information is all there? It just needs a person who conducted that interview. So in our process, our researcher, Heidi, basically runs these interviews. And then after the interview, she goes back and based on her memory of the conversation, not just the transcript, she actually will like do the pattern matching and identify the themes as she knows they were intended in the conversation, regardless of really the transcript at the end of the day, because it's she was in that conversation, so she knows. And so the outputs of what our custom GPT, which we named Foster, because I was really genuinely hoping that it was going to be a thing. And maybe it will be one day, but for the moment, it just really was not up to snuff. So I say all that to say that I tried, and it's not to say that there aren't a gajillion, maybe not a gajillion, but very, very, very many people way, way, way more well-versed in AI than me that could build something like this. But I don't think it's possible to pull that meaning out. And like, if Bob Mesta believes that to be true and Bob Mesta still hasn't solved this problem, then I don't believe anybody else has either. And I would be very, very weary of any AI software that is telling you that they can understand that this piece of software can interpret either scraped data from the internet or auto-generated transcripts for actual meaning about what actually matters to your ideal customers. That is a huge, huge red flag. So I just want to take a quick pause for anybody who is interested or curious to learn more about the process that I'm actually talking about here. So I know I'm talking about AI and the problematic nature of trying to rely on AI to conduct customer research and really learn what matters from your customers. So if anybody is curious what the step-by-step process is that we actually use to learn from customers about what was going on in their lives before, what motivates them to choose you over all the other options, have these really meaningful, like 10 to 12 conversations with customers and then operationalize what you learn from those conversations, I would highly recommend checking out our book. It's called Forget the Funnel. It's obviously available like all over the place, but obviously on Amazon. It's available in audiobook and Kindle and obviously the print version. One thing that I also will say about it is that we worked very hard at making sure this was a very like short and practical book. So this is not this like big theoretical book that is going to take you forever to read. It's not like an 8 to 9 hour audiobook like some of them are. It's actually only a couple of hours. And the feedback that we've gotten is that people have like read it in an afternoon and they've been able to apply the learnings from it pretty well immediately. So I would highly recommend checking out the book if you're interested in learning more about the customer-led growth framework that we talk about. And obviously, we will drop a link for where you can find it in the show notes. So where is AI actually helpful when it comes to customer research? There are lots of use cases when it's actually helpful. However, I want to set the context in which I'm answering this question, which is the vast majority of companies that we have worked with, and even just out in the world. When I say companies, I mean like SaaS, B2B SaaS companies. This is true of many outside of that space, but just if I put those companies in my mind's eye, the vast majority are guessing who their best customers are. In fact, I would say it's about 9 out of 10 are just straight up guessing. And the reason that I can say that is because not only have I spoken to hundreds of founders and product leaders in the last couple of years about this, and they either think they know their customers, and then after a couple of minutes of conversation, they realize, oh shit, I guess I don't actually know my customers well enough. Or they come saying, we just legitimately do not know our customers. Sometimes they know what they don't know, and sometimes they don't know what they don't know. But in all of those cases, they are ultimately guessing at who their best customers are. So I say all that to say that yes, AI can be useful, but it is not useful if you don't have that foundational understanding of who your best customers are and what matters to them and what that customer experience, what the most appropriate and effective customer experience is to deliver to them in order to turn them into a lifer customer of yours. Now, with that context set, we can pepper on AI and what is actually market research and audience research on top of that knowledge, and it can be very useful. But again, without that foundational customer understanding and customer intelligence, we are peppering garbage. It's like garbage in, garbage out. And so again, AI can be very useful for market research, but that is just like, that's audience research, and you have to take that for what it is. They are not customers who have made a purchase decision. They are not customers who have made a trade-off in order to choose your solution. They're not customers who can articulate your value or why they chose you. They're not customers that can talk about the trigger moment that led them to seek out a solution like yours. They're not customers that can describe the better life that they now, enjoy and are benefiting from because they are your customer. They're not customers they're not people that can tell you, what their next challenges are or what they would like to do next with your solution. Audience research and market intelligence and research is wildly important, and wildly valuable, but it is not, it should not come before fundamentally understanding who your ideal customer is so that you can properly interpret market research and market analysis and audience research and audience analysis and all the stuff that AI is pretty okay at. I'm not going to say good at, because I can't say that with a ton of confidence, but it's okay at that. But again, if you take this sea of data collection that AI can do an amazing job at collecting data, it can do an amazing job of even organizing that data. But the problem is that if you don't know how to interpret that data or how to tell the AI to interpret that data based on what you know about your best customers, then it is just it's data for the sake of data, and it is not actually actionable at all. So another use case that I have used AI successfully is actually for customer surveys. So I was in a situation not too long ago where still working with this team, hundreds of thousands of users and customers, and we leveraged surveys in order to really qualitative surveys in order to learn who within that customer base should we be prioritizing to learn from for customer interviews. And because the user base was so huge, and because this team really, we narrowed it down based on, were they getting recurring value from the product, happily paying, signed up recently enough that they know what life was like before. We did segment down in that way, but we still came to about, I think it was 5,000, a group of 5,000 customers. And we're not all those customers are created equally. So we did leverage a qualitative survey to learn from those 5,000 customers in order to qualify who is it we should actually be having a conversation with. And in that case, AI was very helpful for helping me analyze the outputs of that survey. Now it's text, right? There was no energy to begin with. It's not like we lost the integrity of the responses, because the responses were kind of not that great to begin with because it's a survey, but it was helpful for organizing that large set of data. Now, this begs and I would be remiss not to mention this at this point, but maybe I'll stick an asterisk in this. Like, one of the risks associated with this is that it's wildly important that you are anonymizing your data if you are sticking it into an AI in any way, shape, or form, particularly OpenAI and ChatGPT, because they are not ambiguous about the fact that they're using the data that you input into ChatGPT to train their models. And if you are inputting your customers' information into, like, you're basically giving private customer information over to OpenAI. Also, I would say another opportunity to tap into AI is, like, if you're running general, like, temperature taking type of surveys. This is classic, right? Many teams do this, especially more mature companies. They're like the annual customer survey, where they send these like multiple choice types of surveys to their customer base. AI can be very helpful in interpreting the data, generating charts, analyzing big sets of data, like I've mentioned before. The problem is that these surveys typically are being conducted by those 9 out of 10 that I was talking about before, that don't actually have this foundational understanding of their customers. And they think throwing out a survey to their customers once a year is a stand-in for customer research. Like, we talk to our customers all the time on the phone, where our customer support team talks to our customers all the time, or we run an annual customer survey. That is not customer understanding. So I will say that interpreting survey data is a use case for AI. Just really, I would be asking more questions about the survey itself than whether or not you're using AI to basically interpret the results. Okay, so when it comes to some of the risks to look out for, I already mentioned the anonymization of data being highly needed. If you are in-house, if you're a head of product marketing in-house, or on the product team, and you're conducting this kind of customer research and you want to be leveraging AI, I would proceed with massive caution. And I would be asking the leadership team, because you do not want to find out after the fact that you like broke your privacy policy. Now, if you are an early stage founder and you don't have any customers, and it's just you, and there are nobody's, lives depending on you for a salary, and you just genuinely have no other tools at your disposal, then yes, AI can be helpful for scraping the internet, better known as like data collection, and providing you with intel into like what is going on in the market. And again, sentiment analysis, which is nothing new, but sentiment analysis across who you are hoping is going to be your target customer, these prospective customers. It can be useful if you're in that situation. However, if you have customers, you have a team, you have investors, you have skin in the game, you do not have time to waste your time on research that isn't going to yield something actionable for you, because you're at the point where you're like, okay, I got this thing that is running, and you know that what got you here isn't going to get you there. And at this point, if you were to bet the farm, so to speak, on AI interpreted research, I'd be very scared for you. Like, that feels like a massive risk to me if you don't have that foundational understanding to anchor what you learn. The last thing that I will say about AI and customer research, turns out I had more to say than I thought I did, is that we're always looking for tools to help us with this process. We have been testing ad nauseum. Like, Heidi is she's about fed up, and she's really dedicated to finding a solution. We have been thinking about this for a long time. We have been trying all of the tools. And over the last few years, we feel like not one of them, and this has been more so, I'll say more so in the last year, because obviously, tools that came out a couple of years ago, they're not leveraging the most up-to-date AI models. But even the recent tools that we have tried to use in this way in order to interpret human conversations, none of them have done the job. None of them have met the standard at which you would want in order to actually be able to leverage these insights to help your team, make better decisions, arm them with customer intelligence so they can build customer experiences that are actually going to improve conversions, drive more revenue. An AI interpretation of those human conversations. Again, like nothing will replace the human conversation, but even the tools that interpret those human conversations, unfortunately, are just like, we have yet to find one. It's not to say that we never will. And obviously we're looking out for it. If anybody listening knows of a good one that does this really well, I would say my first question is, do you know jobs to be done research? Like, are you actually a researcher and know what you're looking for? Because that's the biggest thing, right? It's very easy to think that the AI results are great when you don't know what you're actually looking for. And I think that's probably, the biggest risk of all is somebody inexperienced is using AI and it's like garbage in, garbage out. So if you know of a tool that does this well, that can actually use generative AI to interpret a conversation and do pattern matching. My first question is, are you an actual expert researcher? And second, like, tell me what it is, and we will happily test it and see if it'll work. But again, at the end of the day, the biggest concern that I always have with this type of, these like, not get rich quick, but like shortcuts, is the nuance is very likely to be lost with these AI interpretations. And it is in the nuance that all the value is sitting. All the context is sitting in there. And that is where your best levers for growth are sitting. You will not see them. It's the opportunities that you haven't yet even seen because you do not have this context and this nuanced understanding of these ideal customers for your product. So with that, that's my take on AI for customer research. Obviously, feel free to disagree. I'm sure many people will, and that's totally fair. Would love to hear more about why you disagree, tools that you've seen that work really well for this. Really happy to have you hit me up with those.
And that's it for this episode of the Forget the Funnel podcast. Thanks for tuning in. If you have any questions about the topics we covered, don't hesitate to contact Gia or myself on LinkedIn. And you can also visit our website at forgetthefunnel.com. This is still a new podcast for us, so ratings, reviews, and subscriptions in your podcast platform of choice make a huge difference. See you next time.